All right, welcome back. Welcome to episode 2 of Lifecycle 2025 Lifecycle 2025, the podcast. So, hi, Andy.
Hi, Ron.
Thank you. Welcome. So maybe we will kick it off with just a little bit about you and your background and your journey in this business.
Sure. The very fact it's called a journey belies that I've been around a while, I guess. So I've got kind of 25 years experience in and around marketing and associated roles, of which probably 20 or so have been in digital or digital-oriented businesses. I started out, probably half and half of that is half and half travel and hospitality, and then the last 10 or so years in and around the retail industry. 5 or so years at ASOS, 3.5 years or so at Rafa, the cycling clothing brand, and then most recently, I'm currently the Chief Digital Officer at Monsoon Accessorize. Hopefully most of you know those brands, certainly the kind of more UK native of you probably do. We've been around Monsoon's a 50-year-old brand now, and Accessorize about 40. We've got a couple of hundred stores still across the UK, across the two brands, some dual stores still of the two combined. So, yeah, heritage brands, but ones that have got a really nice and interesting digital and retail footprint mix.
Yeah, and so part of our goal of this conversation is to, I'll use the word journey again, take us on a journey of kind of marketing of the past, the last 20 years, what's happening today, and maybe a glimpse into the future. So you and I have been doing this for a long time, so maybe let's explore what's changed in the last 20 years, and really maybe more importantly what's still the same.
Yeah, and I think in a funny way the stayed the same is almost the more interesting in some ways. Like, I think if you go back, well, beyond the 20 years, like maybe not as far as Ivan's invention of fire, but if you go back a number of years, when someone would talk about a great retail experience, it would be, maybe the archetype that's used often is the individual clothing store where you go in and you get your suit made, and the person that makes your suit knows you inside out. They know how you like it cut. They know the fabric you like. Like, there's an understanding of you. The product is exactly what you want, and there's a service and experience wrapper around it that really says something about the brand or the shop that you're going to. And I sort of think that none of that has really changed in funny ways. Right. Like, we're all still trying to deliver a great retail experience, and we'll talk more, and like we've heard today about loads of kind of tactics, I guess, that make up that experience. But fundamentally, it's all in the pursuit of this retail experience. Right. And I almost take inspiration from, I said I started out in the travel industry, and I was really lucky. Well, I was very lucky. I started working in the kind of luxury hotel space, which when you're a 21-year-old guy out of university is literally, you think you've landed in the best place possible, and someone's suddenly putting you up in this amazing hotel in Hong Kong, and you're like, how did I get here? This is unreal. But I remember a particular hotel I stayed at, which was the amazing hotel called the Oriental in Bangkok, and they were really famous for having butlers on every floor. And these butlers they just looked after the people that were staying on that floor. They made sure that the guests had what they wanted and were well looked after. And one day I left my room and I was walking down the corridor, and I saw the kind of big swing doors that one of the hotel team came out of the kind of back of house area, and the big swing doors went open. And on the wall they had this big whiteboard, and on the whiteboard there was just a grid drawn in kind of whiteboard marker, and every room on that floor had a line on the whiteboard. And what they would do over the course of the stay, I was in the industry, so I couldn't help just asking questions, so I grabbed them, and this poor Thai guy had to listen to my dumb questions about hotels. But they recorded everything they learned about a guest through the stay. So if you drank all the sparkling water but none of the still, the next day they'd try and make sure there was a bit more sparkling water in the room and a bit less still. Or, I don't know, if you ate the bananas off the free fruit bowl but you didn't eat the apples, well, they would replan with a few more bananas the next day. And so, it was this brilliant CRM experience fundamentally, but just done at a very human level. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, I kind of use that as this paradigm of, well, we're all kind of trying to achieve a similar thing fundamentally, right? And I don't think that's changed. We just now have tooling and technology that can enable it in a different way, in different channels and different touch points. But it sort of feels like it harks back to that same thing.
Yeah, and you're right. Achieving that is so complex and so difficult. But I think sometimes we assume that it's an easy journey to get to that experience. We all want that experience.
Totally.
But it's really complex, and maybe part of the journey of the last 20 years is also the technology to help us do that better.
Yeah, for sure.
Is there one that's most exciting to you?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's one in that sense. I guess when I look at the kind of journey I've been on, like my first kind of digital roles were when e-commerce was still pretty native, like it was still pretty early, but it was super exciting at the time, right? Like this notion that you could, well, there's so many things about it, right? There's notion that you could stock anything for a start. Like stores are inevitably constrained on space. They can hold so much stuff, and all of a sudden you had this notion that you could have a store which could pretty much sell any number of things if you wanted it to. Right. You know, the anything store concept of Amazon, like the everything store, excuse me, like that was a huge thing, and that's obviously now we take that for granted entirely. And then the speed, the convenience, the fact that things could, you didn't have to go to a place to get a thing; it just came to you. And it's like that was mental, right? Like that was, mail order had been around for a while, but it was a pretty clunky process. And now all of a sudden, there's this thing that you can get almost immediately. And then mobile comes along, and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's great, it's lovely, but no one's ever going to buy on it, right? Like, no one's ever going to actually buy anything on mobile. And I remember working at ASOS where we were definitely caught in that, why is the conversion rate a third of the desktop site kind of moment? But then we also were caught in but actually it's incredible. Like you get a mobile app on the phone, you know who the customer is, they're constantly recognized, you've got all their history. We had 300,000 SKUs on the site, and so, personalization as a concept, you can't not personalize in that world, but the mobile just gave you the ability to do that at far greater scale, and then Facebook released actual mobile ads that worked, and all of a sudden you could engage with customers in this device in a meaningful way. Like those journeys that we all now sort of take for granted, like they were huge changes in the way they were, and again, still delivering the same sorts of experiences, but just completely different touch points, completely different moments. I guess, and then probably from a business point of view, we've talked a lot about data today, and I don't know, I feel like I wonder if I want to sit up here and face into Alex's challenge of never doing attribution. That might be a fun avenue to open up later on. But the very fact that there is that much data and it's just so much easier to get to than ever before. Like, there's always been data in businesses, right? Every retail store for as long as they've existed has recorded their sales for the day and knows what they've sold and what they need to replan and whatever else. But the availability of that data to anyone in a business, stuff at their fingertips, blessing and a curse for sure. You can definitely have too much data. I suspect Alex's challenge probably comes back to, you can obsess around those things and try and answer every question perfectly. But the very fact that you can get it that easily is transformational.
And it's different tomorrow.
Yeah,
you could spend hours doing analysis, and then all of a sudden something shifts in the business.
100%.
How would you describe the customer expectation shift in the last couple of decades?
I mean, it's the level of expectation now that stuff will be perfect or just work is, it's moved very fast, right?
Very fast.
And, I could talk as Monsoon Accessorize, I could talk in as working for Rafa previously, less so at ASOS, but the market is you can't always be the best at everything in a market. Like Monsoon Accessorize, we can't aspire to being the best at fulfilling fastest or most nimbly. Amazon sets the standard or whatever for customers, but we are all judged by those criteria to some extent or other.
Right.
So we may not be fastest, but we have to be pretty fast.
Right.
And I don't know, omnichannel is super hard to get right in a business. It's not an easy thing, but customers expect it to work, right? Like if you tell them you've got an item in stock and they order it, they expect it to be there when they turn up in the store. And if you tell them that a thing's going to arrive in a certain number of days, they sure as hell expect it to arrive in those number of days. And I remember at ASOS doing a whole piece of work around delivery proposition and whether different carriers were meeting expectations better or worse in different places. And our perception was always that some of our carriers definitely disappointed people more than others, and therefore maybe it was worth investing a little bit extra in paying for a slightly more premium carrier on all orders. And what we discovered actually is that customer contacts were driven as much by the better carriers, because the more they promised tighter windows and were really accurate, the moment you stepped outside that window by a minute, the customer contacted you to go, where's my order? You said it would be here between 12:26 and 1:26, which I still find amazing that carriers promise those weird windows.
And you're watching them.
Yeah, and the customer is there going, it is now 1:27 and you haven't delivered my order. Right. And they would contact us and ask why. And so that level of expectation in really a very short period of time has just gone sky high.
Yeah, I would also say the customer expects you to know who they are in every channel.
Yeah, definitely, and that consistency of omnichannel and the ability to, honestly, I've not worked yet for a business that has got that right. We're doing some good work right now on omnichannel in the Accessorize brand, particularly at first. But we've still got a long way to go. And one of the basics we fixed recently was the ability for the store staff just to go, Mr. Thurston, brilliant, you're a member of our Treats Reward program. We can make sure you get your points. Like, we didn't have that until recently, which is crazy. Yeah. But it's also not easy. Like, and systems and technology get in the way. But you're right. Customers
Again, I think
expect it to be doable.
I think there's an assumption that it's easier than it is.
Oh, for sure.
Why can't you?
Definitely CEOs assume that. I would say.
Agreed. So if we move to present day and think about, and you speak a lot about, let's just get the fundamentals right. It came up actually in the panel earlier about let's do the basics extremely well, which is the core foundation of brick and mortar too. It's the same in marketing. And you talked about segmentation. Like, tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, segmentation is an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think segmentation for so many people, it certainly did for me for a long period of time. It almost calls to mind like huge projects that involve massive deep dives into enormous stacks of data and surface hundreds of granular segments and opportunities, all quantified perfectly inside. Like those projects are amazing and they can deliver real insight and real value, but they also have a risk of just being incredibly hard to do anything with. And you get this like amazing bunch of insight and you spend weeks and months getting it produced for you, and then you sit there looking at it and going, okay, that's cool. And actually segmentation is as much just acting on any bit of information that you have about somebody and using that to go, well, how can I deliver something slightly different or slightly better to that person or that group of people or that segment of the base just because I know this thing about them. So I think when you talk about basics, I think sometimes, and one of the panels said brilliantly earlier, like sometimes you just got to do some stuff, right? Like sometimes you've got to start somewhere. And I, like Alex, spent a large part of my life at ASOS doing a lot of work on attribution. And one of the conclusions I came to there is you're never going to be right. Like, there is no right answer. There's no tool that can give you the right answer. There probably isn't a right answer. But you can just be continually a bit less wrong. And I think the segmentation, there's a bit of that can apply to segmentation as well. Like, it's okay to start off by going, actually, what if we, Monsoon, we sell ladies and kids clothing. So, really valid and sensible and good first start, which the team does consistently, is, well, let's at least make sure that whenever we're putting some comms out, we've at least got something that's targeted more to the ladies-focused customers and something that's targeted more to the kids-focused customers. So that's segmentation. It's not super sophisticated and granular, but it's on the journey and it's getting there.
It's a fundamental.
And it's actionable, and that's the key, right? And I think like the beauty of all digital things is their actionability and the ability to learn fast, kind of test, learn, iterate mentality that is native to digital. Like, segmentation has a habit of leading people away from that into, I want to get it right and I want to really understand. And actually it's okay to go, I'm just going to add one more in. I'm just going to add a little bit more knowledge. I'm just going to add one more dimension, or I'm just going to add one more segment. We do ladies and kids, but there's also a dual shopper who shops both. So how do we deal with them? Sometimes maybe ladies is more relevant. Sometimes the new kids news might be more relevant. Sometimes it's a combined email with both. So you don't have to jump from not doing anything to having hyper-personalized, uber-segmented activity. Right. You can get on a journey. And
then maybe frustrated with the results.
Right.
Over-analyzing it, over-segmenting it could kind of paralyze the result.
Definitely. Well, what's that? There's a phrase in there, like, perfect is the enemy of done.
Yes.
It's like, you can spend ages and ages trying to do perfect, but actually doing something better than it was before is more important, and then make it better again, and you'll actually find yourself probably in a pretty good place.
Yeah. And in current day, you think about all the technology solutions that are out there, both, I would say, marketing, brick and mortar. What are the kind of obstacles to doing it well from your point of view, and as you engage with your peers?
I mean, I feel like we should probably do a show of hands. Like, lots of people have done shows of hands, but like, how many people in the room think their organization has lots of data? How many people in the room think their organization has lots of data stuck in silos? Right. Like, there's one of your big problems, because most organizations have got the data they need. There's always bits you can fill in, there's always gaps you can fill, there's always more you can add, but most organizations have got the data. Most organizations, in my experience, haven't found a way to get that data into a form that is really super easy to action and use. Okay. And I can answer this very specific question over here, and I can answer this very specific question over here, but I can't combine those things in an easy way and turn it into action. And my team are in the back of the room laughing probably right now, because we definitely suffer from this at times. there's definitely stuff we'd love to be able to move faster on, and it is about connecting that stuff together, and that is hard. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes care. And I think also there's probably, I guess, if you go back to that experience piece and go back to like what this is all about, ultimately, delivering that experience consistently is hard as well, right? When you're clear about what your brand is and what it stands for and how you look and feel and how you talk and all those things, like putting together a piece of comms is, creative people in the room will shoot me, is relatively straightforward. Let's go with it. Own it. Doing it multiple times in multiple channels is much harder. Doing it on and offline where people are involved, getting stores, like part of my big learning from the hotel industry was the brand is delivered by the people on the ground far more than it's delivered by an ad campaign or by a set of brand standards or anything else. And
certainly true in this business.
Yeah, and retail is exactly the same. Getting real humans to deliver your brand in real human interactions to other humans is super hard as well. And having any level of consistency across all those things is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, agreed. And I think even outside of marketing, all the other technology solutions that brands go to conferences and see, and whether it's for the field, it's for the office, it's for other departments, all of that technology integration, marketing is one of the channels, but there are multiple ways that kind of diminish adoption. And all of it is just really complex in our business. I don't know that we spend enough time understanding the complexity of the total ecosystem of the retail industry and all the different technologies, all the work that goes into it, and how, you're right, primarily human in the stores, and how non-tech that can be. It's this combination of interesting assets.
I think that's right, and I think we'll come onto it a bit when we talk about the future probably, but it's been mentioned several times already today, the idea that some of the tech that's coming can really enable the humans and really give all of us the tools to do the things we're trying to do, but do them much better. I mean, that is super exciting, right? Like that's what technology should be for. Like none of us do technology because we want to build technology. We're not tech product companies selling tech products. We're selling other physical products or experience-based products or whatever. Right. And the technology is just an enabler, and it should be that. And if it gets in the way, well, it's definitely not enabling.
It's where adoption falls down,
right?
And kind of not using the money that you spent as a company in the way it was intended,
right?
And that's no one today has the ability to do that.
No, and I think that's why fundamentals is an important concept. It's like often it is really about trying to really make sure those basics are done well. And like if you set a tool, any tool, like we're sat at a conference hosted by a CRM and data platform, but like you said, we could be sat in a retail conference talking about store POS, or we could be sat in a data conference talking about big data processing tools or whatever else. Like if you don't set them up properly and you don't empower them properly and you don't feed them the things that they need in order to flourish, well, they will be blockers, not enablers.
And I guess in a time where headcount is maybe under scrutiny, how do you also manage that? Because people are trying to find ways to maximize productivity of current headcount.
And not just headcount, right? Like productivity of all resource, like ultimately senior leadership in all organizations, one of their big jobs is allocating resource across the business, and that can be budget, cash, it can be people, it can be time sometimes, and really spending the time to make sure that what you are doing is being done well. Alex said it brilliantly earlier, like focusing on those outputs and really being sure that the work you're doing is delivering real value, and that if you're spending money on something, you're spending an appropriate and right amount of money on those things. If you're executing a thing, you're executing it in the way that actually delivers the outcome and the output that it's intended to. That's the way to achieve meaningful size of things without just massive proliferation of people or cost.
Right.
We're definitely on a journey in our business right now we've been over the last year really trying to make sure that where we're investing money in paid marketing or where we're investing money in technology, we're doing it really thoughtfully and really trying to address specific problems or focus in on exactly what we're trying to achieve with a piece of spend or a piece of activity to really drive the value that we need to. Because no businesses in today's climate, very few retail businesses in today's climate have near unlimited funds, resource, time, effort, money.
None I know or speak to.
I mean, even if you go to Amazon, I guarantee you the people in their business are saying we've got way more to do than we've got headcount, people, time, cash to do.
As big as they are.
Exactly. But most of us are hugely constrained, so you have to be really focused.
Yeah. Before we move into kind of future thought, is there one kind of thing or one challenge, one opportunity at Monsoon Accessorize that you're most proud of accomplishing?
Yeah, like so the big the Accessorize team in the room will definitely laugh at me now. So we launched last week a kind of a meaningful upgrade to our omnichannel experience, and it goes kind of more publicly live tomorrow. So if you wander past an Accessorize, which hopefully many of you will do at some point over the next period of time, look out for the large purple signage shouting about click and collect, which hopefully will be all over the place if the store has done their thing right. We know we've had a click and collect proposition for a number of years, but it was slow and it was fulfilled from the DC, and it didn't meet a customer need fundamentally.
Current time, again, customer expectation.
Exactly. It was basically another delivery method. You just happened to get it picked up in your store rather than at your house. And we've put a piece of technology in over the last few months and built a whole load of customer journeys, done some really nice work on the UX, and the team have done some great work on some email comms and so on, all about like really shortening that time window and picking it from store and making it real. Like, this is not revolutionary, this is not stuff that hasn't been done in the industry, but when you think about the Accessorize brand and you think about the experience we're really trying to deliver for that brand, which is, has a high degree of kind of impulse and needs-based purchase inherent to what the brand is about, of course you need a service where you can grab something quickly. And we already saw on Monday in the trade meeting when we looked at the team shared a couple of the first orders that had gone through the new system, and there's some amazing examples of the behaviors that we exactly want to support and encourage. So someone clearly packing their bags before their holiday at 1 a.m. the day before they traveled, placing a click and collect order to pick up a bikini in the airport before they flew. Someone placing an order, clearly couch surfing in the evening, 9 o'clock, and collecting it in the station on the way in the morning. And that's what that proposition should be about, because that's how the customer wants to shop. Yeah. It's not about us being proud of a fast click and collect service. It's about us meeting a customer in a place that really supports what the brand's trying to be and what the brand is trying to offer, the experience we're trying to offer to the customers. So again, like, technology and effort in the pursuit of the correct output to deliver that experience you want for the customers and the brand.
Well, it plays into the conversation we had in the panel earlier around loyalty.
100%.
So that
Yep.
You are a walk-in customer, I'm a click and collect customer, I'm an e-com customer. All of a sudden, you've built this very loyal customer to Accessorize.
I hope so. Yeah, let's hope. Yeah, definitely. Let's hope so. There's obviously a short-term, you will, all businesses look for short-term metrics to justify performance of things, and where you change something, you look for the short-term metrics to suggest it's been a positive change. Yeah. But I agree. I think that one is going to be one where we really will see the benefit in the longer term. Like, that customer that was going to the airport and, maybe they'd have had time to stop in and check and browse Accessorize, or maybe they would have gone to another store, or maybe they wouldn't have even looked at all and they'd have traveled with their old bikini and just had a bit less good a holiday as a result. But hopefully by the fact that they've got the thing, hopefully they love the thing, hopefully they wear the thing, and hopefully they come back to us again next time because we've really met them in that moment where they needed us.
Yeah, interesting. I want to spend the last few minutes kind of future thinking, dreaming about the future. So maybe start with
crystal ball time.
Crystal ball. So this is, and Ivan really painted that picture so beautifully of the past into the present, and let's think about the future. So maybe for Monsoon Accessorize, what is that, and maybe secondly, what is that to you in the industry?
Interesting. I think look, the topic of segmentation and what the kind of AI capability in the future will enable feels like hyper pertinent, right? And I think less about, maybe if you go on that journey I described of like, okay, start somewhere, do a thing, make it better, it becomes more sophisticated and more granular over time. We all know that at some point the kind of human plus some sort of tool very quickly run out of the ability to keep that journey going. Like, there are only so many extra segments and extra versions and extra personalizations and extra creative variations or whatever that a human team can enable. And as we've said, it's not realistic to expect teams to just keep scaling proportionally to the amount of things you want to do. So the possibility that these tools enable some of that stuff at a scale that humans just could not possibly achieve, like, feels really exciting, right? Like the ability to have subject lines that are hyper personalized to what we know about a customer, or the choice of product images based on things. Even product recommendations. I've worked in and around businesses with recommender systems for years. We built our own ones at ASOS at the time when that was it was quite an emergent thing, and it felt like a really important thing for us to be doing given the nature of the business. And those systems are highly constrained by the data that they had available to them. Most recommender systems were based on a thing called collaborative filtering, which is the old Amazon, like people like you bought. So they looked for customers that had shopped the thing, and hey, you look a bit like that other customer, so you might like the thing too. And then they started adding the thing called content filtering, which is like, well, I'm trying to understand the actual product itself. So like, if you run like that jacket, well, there's other jackets that I believe might be like that jacket and can recommend that too. And obviously then you get to a kind of hybrid system using the both. But they're fundamentally limited by the data that you've got to start with. So the data that you've got on your customer or the data that you've got on your products.
Right.
And as we all know, anyone that works in retail in this room, I'm fairly sure will share the pain of like inconsistent or inaccurate or incomplete product data. Like, having perfect product data would make everybody's lives a lot easier, and very few of us have perfect product data, I would guess. Yeah. The notion that a tool might be able to kind of just figure a lot of that stuff out for you and therefore offer a whole more interesting, more granular level of personalization, like that does feel super, super exciting and super powerful. And the notion of being able to go, hey, these 12 products that look sort of at a surface level quite different and in product data terms quite different, but they fit a trend or they fit retail has been curating that stuff for years, and that's brilliant, but it's only so scalable. The idea that we might be able to achieve similar levels of curation or recommendation at scale does feel super exciting.
And maybe do it and predict it in advance of just looking then at sales data.
Right.
4 weeks later and frustrated by the predictions that you may have made.
Right. The biggest problem with recommenders is cold start problems where you've got no data. Like if no one's bought the product, you don't know who the customers are that like the product, so you can't recommend that product. Like the idea that you go, well, actually, you're going to love this. Like for an AI to be able to do that feels really interesting. Serendipity's always been the hardest bit of retail, right? Like if you know exactly what you want, people have been optimizing on search for years, and if you type in the exact thing that you want and qualify it 1 million times, you'll probably find that thing pretty well. If you want to be a little bit inspired, or you know roughly what you want, or you've got a kind of territory to explore, like the retail industry has really struggled to solve that, other than human-to-human interaction, right? We're back to that original experience of, I want it to be like this. There's something really exciting in that, and and definitely a piece around the data as well, like the ability to explore. From a kind of human operations point of view, the ability to explore vast amounts of data very quickly and kind of land on the things that matter faster, that feels super enabling for a business to not to reinvest that time that has been historically spent pulling data together, crunching it, analyzing it, coming up with the conclusions, deciding what to focus on, like reinvesting that back into doing stuff to make customer experience better. That feels like a pretty good win.
I would agree. Last question, and I don't think there's any press in the room, so no worries, but the idea of any predictions you could give us.
Predictions, right. So I wasn't going to make this prediction, but maybe the talks earlier on have inspired me that I'm now absolutely terrified of the prospect of Amazon having a chip in your brain and sending you stuff before you even knew that you wanted it.
Is that a prediction or a fear?
I think it might be both. I don't know, actually. Like that genuinely, I'm like, wow, there's a thing I hadn't thought about there. Maybe a slightly controversial prediction. I think the key thought for me is this thought about how the human in the picture can be really enabled by the technology and what the technology can enable. And I almost wonder if so much of this technology will create massive steps forward in some of the core operational stuff that we all try and do and that we all try and achieve, and hopefully it all plays towards those outputs I talked about of better experiences and better journeys for customers. But I think maybe the human interaction and the human moment of magic in there is the bit that will start to become even more important. And how do you differentiate against someone like Amazon, who are vast and can do all of this stuff at scale? Well, maybe the human interaction and the human moment is the thing that we start to find a way to recapture and use that to really be the magic.
I love that as a prediction, because it's the one that is hardest to control, but it's the one that is, I think, the most inspiring, and I think the most craved by customers today, because they can get the digital, they can get speed, they can get data, they have all of that. I actually want this.
Yeah, and hopefully
talk
all that first stuff will work. That'll just happen,
Yeah.
and the expectation is that it will happen, and then it allows you to focus on, well, how can I deliver something just that little bit special over the top?
At any price point, like that,
Right.
not reserved for luxury.
No.
It should happen in an accessorized store, like at
Hopefully.
every touch point, that level of human connection.
A magical click and collect experience for everybody in the room. There you go. There's a start point.
I love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ron.
Andy. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.